In the Watch Order Task Force, the movies are represented by idiots who think they know the perfect sequence in which viewing pleasure can be achieved. These are their excuses. Hi there, I'm Watch Order Cadet AP, and today I'm on my second assignment on the Watch Order Task Force. And guess what? The captain says if I do this one really good like last time, he'll let me clean everyone's car in the department. I'm a lucky boy, and I hope I get to crack this case because I cannot wait to slave away and clean everyone's car. It's going to be amazing. So today on the assignment, I will be looking at movies from Middle-earth. That's right, Middle-earth. So the movies I'm going to be looking at are all the first entries of the franchises I'm going to be looking at. So basically, the first one I'm going to look at is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, representing the Hobbit franchise of movies, the three movies, the trilogy. The second one I'm going to be looking at is Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, representing that original live-action trilogy of Lord of the Rings movies. And the third movie I'm going to be looking at is the animated movie that was released in the late 70s. And that will be representing sort of like the genre of those three animated movies. But really, I want it to be just, let's look at these first entries of these three different trilogies and let them represent a first dip into the genre of Middle-earth, the world of Middle-earth, if you like. And I want to let you know which is the best way to enjoy Middle-earth, to get the best out of it, to get the best viewing pleasure. And you know what? We're going to find out. So I will be arranging these, as always, for the Watch Order Task Force into this order. The first movie you should watch of these three, the middle movie, the second best, and then the third movie, which is the one I believe to be the worst of the three. So I'm going to talk through all these three, and all I can say now is grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, put your feet up, and get ready for some Watch Order Task Force. So how would I begin the Watch Order of Middle-earth? So for me, I would have to start it off with Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. It is, for me, the best of the bunch. The best out of all these three sets of trilogies. It is fantastic. And let me explain to you why I think this is so great. This was released in 2001. And I was never aware. I'm a kid at this time when this movie comes out. And I'm never aware that this franchise existed. I didn't know anything about it. To me, it's just like this medieval, like, fantasy franchise. And I remember people just enjoying it and speaking about it in school at the time. They were going crazy about it. And everyone's comparing it to, saying it's like the new Star Wars. And wow, it was huge. I think anyone who was growing up with Lord of the Rings realizes how huge this was. It was our Star Wars for this generation of kids coming out of it, watching them movies. And it wasn't just like, it didn't have this big craze and appeal over it for nothing. It was a fantastic movie and a fantastic entry into what Middle-earth is about. I think it's fantastic. So first of all, the Fellowship of the Ring, it tells the story of the ring, the start of the Fellowship, and the start of the story, the way they've got to destroy the ring to basically save everyone within Middle-earth. It's a fantastic story, a fantastic telling over the whole trilogy of movies. This one, I would say, is probably my best. I suppose this and the second one are my favourites. Probably the second one is the best one out of the three for me, but this one just really opens up that world fantastically well. We open in the Shire, where we see Frodo Baggins. We see some fantastic sets that have been made throughout this movie. The sets are phenomenal. The The creatures are amazing. It's all like actual physical, realistic, real masks, real sets, real costumes. It is so cool to watch, and you can see just how much hard work has went into this, and especially if you watch like the making of stuff on the DVD. I've got the DVD version of the Fellowship of the Ring, and if you watch like the behind the scenes stuff on it, it's amazing just seeing all the creature effects and how all of it's been made. And yeah, sure, you can't just judge everything upon the look of it, the visual look of it. I think all that is great, but the story is just as great. It's a great book. I've not read the book. I've only read the Hobbit book, but I've heard the book is just as good. But I've heard also that it is very much like the best adaptation you could think of any type of book adaptation. I think like the Harry Potter ones are pretty good. I think Lord of the Rings is really really cool. It's a really good adaptation. From what I hear, as I said, I've not read the book, but yeah, for me, this has got to be the first entry into Middle Earth. And this should be if you've never watched any type of Lord of the Rings, Hobbit movies before, you've got to watch the Fellowship of the Ring first because it's just such a cool eye opener into what this is. I think this sets up the best story of the whole Middle Earth. I think it tops the Hobbit story. I think it's a fantastic story, fantastic characters, awesome cast, absolutely awesome cast. You think like a lot of this cast were really, really unknowns really at the time. Sure, there's a few familiar faces to some people, like Ian McKellen, Sean Bean, but a lot of these faces within this movie weren't really known to a lot of us. I know myself, I didn't know a lot of these faces, but now a lot of these people within this movie are household names. You got Sean Astin, I think it is from The Goonies as well, but really, it wasn't really like a household name as such. The Goonies was a movie from the 80s, and this is a movie like 20 years later. But yeah, it's just the great starting point if you've never watched these movies before. It's the best of these three entries I'm going to discuss on this episode, and for me, my first part of the watch order begins with Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So my middle choice on this assignment goes to The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. So this movie was released in 2012 and it starred Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins, Ian McKellen returned, and then we got like the likes of Richard Armitage. He is a part of the main cast. And you see a lot of like the originals from the original movies. As I said, Ian McKellen, Christopher Lee, Hugo Weaving, Elijah Wood returns as well for some of the stuff. And look, it's a 3-part movie, and this is my second entry for a few different reasons. It doesn't live up to what the original trilogy was, and this entry doesn't live up to what the first movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy had. It was just a bit, I don't know, it was just like the gas had all been let out and there was nothing left but I think we had everything that was good about Middle-earth on screen shown within that first trilogy of movies, and this just felt a bit deflated. It really did. And I think it's a shame because they really did have a good cast. I think Martin Freeman was a good casting for Bilbo Baggins, and yeah, it just doesn't live up to. But again, I've read the first book, right? So I've read the Hobbit, and it's a good enough book. But you know what? I've just totally destroyed everything about this podcast, this special bonus podcast today. I just realised now, I'm getting confused. I remember. I do apologise. I'm just going to apologise. I'm not going to redo all this, but I've read Lord of the Rings. I've not read The Hobbit. So everything I've been saying about the books, ignore me. But to this point, Lord of the Rings, I've read the first Lord of the Rings book, and it's a really good read. I've never read The Hobbit, so I do apologise. I've lied on the assignment. If anyone's listening to this now, I just please do ask you that you don't tell the captain that I lied on this assignment. If the captain finds out that I lied, I'm in big trouble. He's gonna, I don't know, he will not let me clean them cars if I fail this assignment. He will not let me clean them cars. Please, everyone listening, do not tell the captain that I told a small lie about what book I read. But yes, it is Lord of the Rings, the book I read. So let's get back to The Hobbit anyway. The Hobbit, yeah, it just feels deflated compared to the Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring first entry. The visuals are somewhat comparable, but the sets are really good. Yeah, the sets are great. Some of the stuff on like the dwarfs is good, but then there's way too much CGI. Way too much CGI in this movie. Way too much digital effects, digital creatures rather than the first movie where it was all actual costumes. I realised with this movie there was a bit of trouble in the production of it. And if you watch a lot of that behind the scenes stuff on this movie, The Hobbit, you can see that. I know Guillermo del Toro was originally set to direct this, and he was working with Peter Jackson, but he was scheduled to direct it, and basically it just production went on for too long. The Hobbit was spoken about for years before it was actually put into production, and it was just felt like a movie that was never going to get made, and then he basically just dropped out last minute by the sounds of it, and Peter Jackson had to then jump in, and Peter Jackson he was making a Peter Jackson movie with the production of a Guillermo del Toro movie. So he was rushing, and if you watch some of the scenes on the making of on some of the Hobbit movies, you see Peter Jackson telling people to go for dinner breaks, extended dinner breaks, while he works out what he's going to do on this scene, because it was just basically they had to start production at a certain point. He was thrown in as the director because he's done such a good job on the first three Lord of the Rings movies, and it felt rushed. And I don't think it's so much it feels rushed on camera, but I feel like there's some bits that just don't feel right. And again, it's like little bits. Maybe the CGI, the visuals were all Del Toro stuff, and that's what he wanted, but they don't feel like something that Peter Jackson created from the original trilogy. So it felt disconnected, and again, I don't think the story's quite up to the story of the Fellowship of the Ring. I think the story is not as good. I think probably the whole trilogy could have been told in maybe one or two movies, probably two, and I just don't think it is really. If you're going to say to someone now, look, you've never watched Middle Earth before, you've never watched anything from J.R.R. Tolkien's universe, Lord of the Rings universe, but I tell you what, I'm going to let you watch something. I would not tell them to watch The Hobbit. It would not be my first choice. It's a middle of the road choice. It goes middle of the road for me, but it is no way at all going to be my first choice. It just doesn't live up to the potential of what it could have really been. So my third and final watch today, the third choice in the watch order, the one you want to definitely not watch first. This is the one that you watch last out of all of these choices of watch orders. So my third choice is the Lord of the Rings 1978 animated movie, and this was directed by Ralph Bakshi. It's spelled Bakshi. I am awful at reading out names, so I will not. I'll spell it because I obviously couldn't pronounce it then. But this was an adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, the first two books. So it was The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers. It says on Wikipedia it's the first half of Two Towers. From what I watched the other day, this was like basically the first two from the live action Lord of the Rings movies, The Fellowship and Two Towers, thrown into this movie, and it's like a 2-hour movie. And let's get to it. Why is this my choice as the third, the one you want to watch least out of the three? First of all, let's get on to the animation. The animation here is very mixed indeed, and let me explain. So they have basically this like hand-drawn animation, but it is mixed in with this use of animation called rotoscoping, like a technique where it's basically, to sum it up in a nutshell, it's you've got the standard really decent animation, like your cartoony type animation, like a Disney style animation, and then it's mixed in with like live footage of actors, but they're then sort of converted into cartoony animated looks. It's kind of like the Aha Take On Me video, whereas you've got like the band Take On Me, and then they're sort of like cartoonized, and they're put into that footage. But it mixes this live action where you can visually tell the real actors in the scenes mixed in with this hand drawn animation, and I found it really off putting. I really found it off putting, and it was only like a few scenes, like maybe like I didn't realize it till like maybe like 20-30 minutes into the movie that I noticed this style of animation really clicked with me, that this was going on. And that's next minute I'm searching on the internet, like what type of animation is this, and then I read up and I realize the style they went for, and it really lets down the movie. Now I don't know whether this style of animation was done due to the fact, look, this is a movie made in 1978. It may have been a lot easier to add in this style of animation to this movie. Or maybe it's a case where the director felt it looked unusual, it was something groundbreaking for the time. I just don't think it works. I really don't think it works. I think it is a bad choice. I think it really lets down the movie, because the actual animation's not that bad. It's not the best animation. I wouldn't say it's something that I would adore and say, look, this is the best animation ever. But it's watchable. It's a decent animation. The hand drawn stuff I'm talking about. But when you add in this weird live action rotoscoping animations to scenes as well, it's basically you've got like these war scenes, the battle scenes, and then you've got these like actors in, and then the mix in it. It just looks bizarre, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me, and I think it would really off put me, and this makes me not recommend this. I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone now for that first reason. That's the first reason. The second reason, let's get onto the story more so. Story and the cast. So the cast, we got William Squire, John Hurt is involved, Anthony Daniels, Michael Graham Cox. Two names I know there for one are Anthony Daniels and John Hurt. And look, it's a good cast. It's a good cast, but the story is just way too much pushed into one movie. And then the second and the third one, they're actually adaptations of The Hobbit, and they're adaptations of Return of the King. But I don't actually think the original director, Ralph Bakshi, is involved in them ones. I think it's actually Rankin and Bass, I'm not too sure. But it is way too condensed. It is rushed in times where you watch like Fellowship of the Ring, the live action one, and that whole trilogy. Well, just the first movie. Let's take the first movie. It doesn't feel rushed. It takes a good pace. The story is taking its time, but it's told at a pace that works, and nothing's rushed throughout it. It's just a good telling of the story at a good pace throughout the whole movie. This, because it rushes two books into one, it just feels super rushed. I think it starts well. I think it really, we have them scenes in the Shire, same as the Fellowship of the Ring, very similar scenes, and then it just drifts on, because it's cutting stuff out and it's just rushing the story ahead. It feels like in no amount of time, as far as we've left the Shire, we're into the Two Towers, and it's like in Rohan and stuff like that, and the trying to get the king there who's under the spell, out the spell, and then it's like the battle, the famous battle in the Two Towers as well. It's just really crammed in, and yeah, I don't like this movie. I suppose it's a combination of a bad rush story, not a bad story, just a rush story, and really, really off-putting animation. Really puts me off, and this is why this movie for me is the third and final choice. And let me just take a little step backwards as well. I remember having this as a kid, And I'm not too sure whether I watched it. Maybe I've seen little bits of it as a kid. I think what I might have, because I had it on DVD. I remember having this on DVD as a kid, and I think it was probably around the same time the first Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings movie came out on DVD. And I think I remember, like, it might have been a case where it was as like a bonus, you buy these two for like a set price or something. Because I do recall having them both on DVD. And I'm thinking maybe I might have watched it briefly and just thought this was absolute trash back then. If that is the case, and I'm sure that's the way I remember it. I recall remembering watching something of it, but do remember having it on DVD. But it wasn't a good experience, or I just didn't like the look of it or whatnot, or I've seen some clips or something. But it's. I remember having this on DVD, and look, to anyone out there, maybe you want to experience the animation. You want to experience this different alternative telling of the story. Fine, experience it. But I'm telling you this right now. I'm sure you will only want to experience this the one time because, wow, this is bad. It is one of the worst movies. Worst movie adaptations I have seen. That is my honest opinion. I would not recommend this movie to anyone. So you now know my Middle-earth watch order, but as always, this assignment requires something extra special, and it is the special recommendation on the case file. It is the crime against movies, and today we've got a few different crime against movies. Last time on the watch order task force, the first edition, I only had one special recommendation, but I've got a few for this one, and let me just talk about it. So I've got two different ones, and one's a bit of an unusual one, but I just thought it deserves a mention as a special recommendation on this case file. So first of all, what I want to mention is The Hobbit. The Hobbit movie, An Unexpected Journey. And this thing, as I said, crime against movies can be anything. It can be a plot point, it can be a character, it can be anything you like that you deem a crime against movies. And the first one today is the singing in The Hobbit, in An Unexpected Journey. The hobbits, the dwarfs, are in Bilbo Baggins' house, and they start singing this really solemn singing song, and it is one of the parts of the movie I just do not enjoy. I do not enjoy one bit, and I remember reading that first Lord of the Rings book, The Fellowship of the Ring, and I'm aware within that book, I had the Audible version, and there was quite a lot of singing within that book, and the narrator within it would just start singing these sort of like rhymes, these like, "Oi, you are in the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring," that sort of stuff, and it is very similar on The Hobbit, very sort of like, whoa, like a Welsh choir type singing voicing, and I do not like it. I do not like it. I did not like the audiobook when I listened to that. They were the bits I didn't enjoy, but I sat through them and listened to them while I was on my walks. But watching this, sitting at home, watching The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, just something didn't click with me. And same as the audiobook, for me, this is a crime against movies. I just don't like this singing, and maybe you enjoy it, and if you do enjoy it, that's good for you, but you are committing a crime against movies if you enjoy this part of the movie. I'm telling you that. This is serious business. I'm putting this on the case file because it deserves to be on the case file. The second crime against movies is a really, really special one, and I was only aware of this a few days ago, but basically, there's been an alternative adaptation of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. And let me tell you what the adaptation is called. It is called Hobbitit. Yes, Hobbitit. And it's spelled Hobbitit. Hobbit tit. Hobbitit. And let me just, this is off Wikipedia basically. and Hobbit It is a 9-part Finnish. It's from Finland. Live-action fantasy television miniseries originally broadcast in 1993, and it is based on The Lord of the Rings, but it limits the journey to just Frodo and Sam taking the One Ring to Mount Doom. Now, you can watch this. You can watch the first episode, and I've watched bits of the first episode on YouTube. If you just type in Hobbit It, the way I spell it, I'm sure you'll find it straight away. Watch episode 1, and it is the most bizarre thing. And sure, this is made in 1993. This is an adaptation of Lord of the Rings, and it was 9 episodes, 30-minute episodes, and there was a scene in it where it has Gollum. And Gollum, so you think it's not like the CGI Gollum we know of the live-action adaptations of Lord of the Rings. This is a man, I believe, in basically his skin's all been dyed this, like the Gollum's colour, same colour. He's got like a prosthetic nose, but it's just this like I'd say a gentleman who's a bit oversized, and maybe he's a big guy, and I was in fits laughing. It is nothing like Gollum, nothing like the Lord of the Rings you've watched before. This is just a bizarre adaptation, and you don't even need to be able to speak Finnish. You can just watch this and just have a good laugh. Just skip to the scenes with Gollum and Frodo, and it is just magic, absolute comedy magic. It really is. I never knew this. I was never aware of Hobbit until I started doing a bit of research on these movies. But definitely check it out. It's a crime against movies, and I know it's not featured in the Watch Order Task Force today on the assignment, but I felt like it deserved a special recommendation on the case file today, because it's so funny just to watch this and just to see this unreal, bizarre adaptation of something. And I'm sure this has been buried in history, because I was never aware of it. It's been buried in history for a reason. Check it out. It is well worth watching. So that is the case for today, and hopefully the captain likes my results. He enjoys, hopefully, my watch order, I hope. And I hope you enjoy the watch order as well. But let's be fair, the captain's opinion matters the most to me, because as I said, if I get a thumbs up from him, if I get the positive result from him again, if I pass and give him the assignment and it gets the go-ahead, I get to clean everyone's calendar in the department, as I said. And I tell you what, everyone's really looking forward to it. They're cheering me on. Every day I come in, they're like, yeah, Cadet AP, watch order Cadet AP. Are you ready to clean my car? Because I've just thrown some milkshakes and coffees and donuts in the back seat, smothered it all over it, and you're going to clean it up if you pass that assignment. We hope you pass it. And I just say to them, yeah, I hope I pass it, because I'm looking forward to it. Because guess what, guys? I'm a lucky boy, and if I get to clean up the mess, it's a good day for me. So, I hope you enjoyed the edition today on the Watch Order Task Force. I hope you enjoyed this discussion about Middle-earth. And I'll tell you what, I'll see you next time on the Watch Order Task Force.